Hello, once again, I'm BR Schultz. Thank you for joining me. It is January 16th, 2024, Friday. I try to record these videos for the week following on the weekends so that I have 2 or 3 days to actually record the video. I usually get a video out to the public on Fridays. So just to kind of give you the overall process that I go through. I've got some new slides for you today, or maybe some refresh slides, I should say. As you can see, the predicted major peak coming in early February is staying the same, and the bottom for the crash low is staying the same. So I try to create a very consistent and methodical approach to market timing. So I've been working on the mid-range timing tools and things of that nature. So hopefully the past 8-9 months proves worthwhile, despite my despite some of my failures, unfortunately. And then also at the top ribbon of this title bar, as you can see, I'm expecting a possible Great Depression to start in 345 weeks. I think that's why you're hearing about presidential candidates trying to minimize or remove Social Security, things of that nature, going into the 2030 time frame. Essentially, a Great Depression would be amplified if they remove all the safeguards for the public. So I assume that's what politicians will continue to do, try to remove safeguards for the public. You'll see, as you know, some of these big investment firms are buying up all the homes and trying to create a monopoly over owning residential homes. And so I think it's all in preparation for what's leading up to a Great Depression that starts Labor Day of 2030, and then ends in October of 2035, or maybe even as late as 2037. So I think you're going to see more and more politicians being paid and funded to remove safeguards, to remove security for the public overall. So watch out for that what I believe will be the possibility of a Great Depression, which would start in, again, about 345 weeks from now, so about 6.5 years. All right, let's move on to the macro peak model that I've recently kind of got working. Okay, so first up we have the macro zigzag. I found that if you flip it upside down, you get 3 touch points, you create a future macro peak. For instance, 1, 2, 3 on your far left of the screen gave you the end of 2021's peak at the end of December 2021. Then up at the top you have the green, that little short green arrow. You have 3 touch points on the zigzag going up to the end of March, early April 2022. That was a major peak of the markets. The markets crashed. And then next would be the mid-August of 2022. If you remember that was a great peak in the markets. Again, that's 3 touch points using that little yellow line. And then also you can see how that it picked out roughly the Super Bowl of 2023, and then the markets crashed into mid-late March 2023. And then also with the black line, you can see how that picked out the end of July with 3 touch points, maybe 4 touch points. And then the long green line, you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4 touch points going out to roughly February 6th. And that's where I believe that the next macro peak will fall. And then the model has also predicted that there will be another macro peak, believe it or not, in the first week of March. So we should have a pretty strong sell-off, more than likely, I believe, until late February, and then we're going to pop back up really strongly. We'll see strength in the market again back in that first week of March. So it's kind of like a 5-wave movement where the end of December was the very tip top, and then we dropped into early January, and that was wave 1 down, and then we popped back up here into mid-late January. So this is wave 2 up, then it stalls, and then we crash for wave 3 into late February, pop into early March, and then do the 5th wave down into mid-late March of 2024. So that's kind of the mid-range view. Michael Jordan promised or swore that he would master his jump shot, his mid-range jump shot. History would show that he's one of the best mid-range jump shooters. I can't even speak that well about basketball, so apologies for messing up some of the terms there. But when Michael Jordan first started, they said that obviously he had a lot of strength and was very good at dunking, but a lot of people wanted to see him improve his mid-range jumper, and lo and behold, that's exactly what he spent his time trying to perfect, and he did a very good job of that, as we know, as history would prove. And so hopefully the last 8 to 10 months will prove the same for my stock market timing game. All right, let's zoom in a little bit on this graph. Okay, so I zoomed in a little bit. You can see all the touch points for the long green line. You can see it starting in January of 2022, and you can see that the full, what do you want to call it, the full macro reset. Actually, that's quite interesting, right? Because that what really was the macro peak was in January 2022 or late December 2021 is where that green diagonal line started. I guess I haven't really noticed that before. And then it climbed up that wave. So by July of 2022, it already had 3 touch points. And then the 4th touch point was in April of 2023. You can see on that dashed green line how the zigzag wave went up and tagged that trend line. And what's interesting really is, wow, that's almost precisely the same date as well, right? So 2 years later, almost precisely the same time frame, you're going to have a macro peak. But lo and behold, we should have another peak, a pretty strong peak, melt up in markets into early March. So even though history will repeat itself, and Mark Twain's comment about history may not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. It's shot at rhyming. We'll see. Have to see how strong the peak is off of the February 6th peak. But basically, these models are used for defining macro peaks via the 1, 2, 3 counts. So again, I look for a 1, 2, 3 count, and that should define a pretty strong melt up in that point, and then a strong decline. So again, the next macro peak, as I've been saying for the last 3 videos, including this one, my estimate is roughly February 6th for the next macro peak. Next slide. Hopefully, if you do enjoy these videos, that you will pass them along to other friends, friends and family. I've kind of sworn off doing anything else but the S&P 500. As you can tell, my models seem to do halfway decent, being consistent in predicting the S&P 500. So if you're intrigued by it or you find it interesting, I've spent over a decade working on this, maybe 15 plus years now, probably get on around 15 years. So yeah, if you enjoy watching my videos, if you find my stock market timing predictions interesting or intriguing, please share my videos. I'm pretty sure I'm extremely low in the views algorithms, so if you would hit the like button, subscribe, and pass it along to friends, family, other stock market fanatics, I appreciate it. So anyways, this is my 30-minute model. You can see the 3 touch points on the purple wave. The purple wave is my MJ23 timing wave. It's what I call my Michael Jordan timing wave. So you can see the 3 touch points essentially going up to February 6th. So again, February 6th is my next macro peak for markets. We saw markets rocket up today. My short-term models suggest there might be a little weakness into the 23rd. But overall, the macro models all point to the next macro peak around the stated February 6th date. So that is the forecast. You may remember this graph from last time. I think it's the 15-minute graph. I believe I've updated this. So this also projects the February 6th peak date, macro peak date. So obviously, the more and more alignment you get with all these different various models, all picking the same peak date, hopefully it increases the probability that I have the correct date for the next macro peak. Well, that's where the zigzag line really, I think, is beneficial. Using the 3 touch points, trying to pick out where the macro peaks are, right? Not where every little tiny peak is, but where the macro peaks. And I think the zigzag really does a really good job of being like a sawtooth type graph, definitely picks out. It doesn't have like rolling tops, I should say. It has more like teeth, very sharp teeth. So a peak is very easily identified in that type, such a graph. So again, February 6th, again and again and again. This is the 2-minute bottom model I use. Essentially, if you put SH or a short ETF for the S&P 500, drop that in here, see where the 3 or 4 or 5 touch points hit. Should give a bottom in the shorts, so that would tie out with the macro peak on roughly February 6th. Would see a macro bottom in shorts. So I think that will be the next midterm bottom in shorts, or macro bottom in shorts, or peak in the markets again. It's nice. It's nice being able to have a consistent story week after week after week. It's been a long time trying to get all these different models to a point where they can all tell a same story, and then obviously week after week after week, and then markets play along with that story. It makes it even more fun to do this. So hopefully some of you really get a kick out of this. And this is the S&P 500 30-second peak model. One of my first original peak models. Basically touch 3 touch points and project out to a peak at the top of the graph. So again, that's February 6th projected by this model as well. This graph requires you to use that high definition pixel screen on your Apple or Android. You can zoom in, see where each one of these lines touch. Again, looking for 3 touch points. That first yellow diagonal wave off the red wave has, I think, 1, 2, 3, maybe that's 4 or 5 touch points going out to, again, roughly that February 6th. On that green diagonal went out to the end of December, so that was the peak of the markets there. And then you can see that dashed blue line, essentially point number 1 starts with the same point as the green dashed line. By going through the midsection of that red wave, that's point number 2, and then bounces off the top of the red wave at the end of December, so that's 3. And again, that gets you another peak in the beginning of March. You can look at the bottom of the graph, the kind of that zigzag dark blue line. When it creates like this low trajectory out to the black horizontal line, you get the bottoms of market. So essentially it predicted the end of October, and then you can kind of see it's predicting the very close to the end of March. So I think Easter falls on the very end of March this year, so Holy Week would be around that time frame. So usually Holy Week is a positive week for the markets, so it could bottom right around Holy Week this year. So again, take some time if you want to study this graph. This is my 2-minute peak model for the S&P 500. It's kind of what I call my Federal Reserve algorithm for peaks. So it used to be like a teal, but I figured red and green would be easier for the buy and sell. You can also kind of see how the model picked a buy point for roughly here in mid-January, and that's where we saw the strength in markets today. The last 2 days, actually, the markets rocketed. Yeah. So let's keep moving. Lots of graphs, huh? Yeah, lots of graphs. Okay, so this graph I didn't update since the last time, but because I'm short on time, this evening, basically after the February 6th peak, expecting markets to drop into late February, roughly around the 22nd of February, or plus or minus a day, somewhere around there. That's where I expect the markets to finally bottom. Now, if this truly is the end of wave 2, going into early February, then wave 3 down, I believe, would be into the end of February. So if that truly is a wave 3 down, then perhaps it really could be a strong sell-off. And then after this bottom, then markets obviously projected to pop upwards into the early March time frame. So let's keep moving. Now, I think that the 20-minute model is well synced, or synced well. don't remember my adjectives from my 5th, 6th, or 7th grade English class very well, but obviously I'm a math guy. So anyways, you got 5 touch points here on the purple wave, and essentially it's saying that it's calling out that early March peak, right? So I don't know if this is synced the best or not, but I thought it was quite interesting how it was calling out roughly that early March peak. So yeah, so that's why I included it in this slide deck today. Next graph. Wow, I have quite the repertoire of graphs today. I have 15 slides. 2 of them are beware. So that means I have 13 slides. 12 graphs. So maybe 10 graphs altogether. Not bad. Keep moving. I didn't change this graph either. It's my 30-minute graph. Since you see the 1, 2, 3 on the purple wave, we went out to the end of March time frame. So again, this is more general call by the model, not razor thin accuracy, but more of a broad perspective. So again, though, I found that there's a nice 1, 2, 3 touch point going out to the very end of March. So that's essentially the full forecast, right? You saw me predict that the next peak should be around February 6th. Then markets go flat / decline into February 22nd, roughly, and then they pop up into that first week in March, first few business days in March for the next peak, and then hit their final 5th wave down in mid-late March. I'm not sure what the Fed means in March, so but yeah, so that it'd be like a 5-wave movement down for the bottom at the end of March. Let's move on. I think I have one more graph. Yes, I didn't upgrade this graph either, but you can see the ability of the model. Those of you who have seen this model before are used to the 50-point parallel lines, but this is separated by 25-point lines. So every now and then I see something different in the models, as you might expect as you stare mindlessly at these graphs forever. It occurred to me that it wasn't the 50-point line that was calling out the bottom, it was a 25-point line. So once I changed the settings, I dropped in 25-point parallels instead of 50-point parallels. That's how this jumped out at me. So essentially this kind of confirms that there's a macro bottom at the end of March, mid-late March, you might say. Again, if you look back at these, you just need two touch points below the line, and then when it strikes the line, it seems to create a giant hole in the market, like mid-late May of 2022, like end of June 2022. I think there was one for October that went way back in time that the screen doesn't really allow for you to go back years. Too many years, I should say. But you can also see that the model called out the bottom at the end of October of 2023, and then it's calling for a major low at the mid-late March 2024 timeframe. So again, the graph isn't updated. You might wonder why this doesn't match the upside down version for the first graph that I presented in the slideshow today. I didn't update it, but obviously you see how many reference points and I have throughout all the graphs. So hopefully you can see how you can slack a little bit on updating your graphs as long as you're telling the same story, right? So that's where I really think my models excel at when I get my groove. When I find my groove, I think that's where the models really hit the mark. And so you've seen now for 3 weeks how I've used the zigzag graph as my basis or my foundation for where I think the major macro turning points are, and then zoom into the micro models to try to pull out those mid-range jumpers, if you will, of where the bottoms and peaks are. So hopefully you've enjoyed these. And again, if you are enjoying these, please share them with friends, families, other stock market intrigued individuals like yourselves. And yeah, I'm BR Schultz. Until the next video in a week from now, hopefully, and have a good week. It is very cold where I live. Yeah, we're getting lots of snow. So, anywho, we have another 2 months before this whole cycle is over with. So, hopefully, you're seeing that my predictions remain consistent, that they're not changing. That I have multiple graphs that seem to be all synced together. Obviously, that's the main goal, is to have all the models saying the same thing, projecting the same date, and hopefully all highly accurate. So, if you've never seen my work before, in 2022, the models really did well with the crash, and then I had to learn my lesson the hard way in 2023. Made quite a few errors, and had to go and go to the basketball court late night with the model and practice my mid-range jumper, and failed quite a few times at it. But along comes 2024, and right out of the gate, hopefully lock in a big call here. So I think hopefully the February 6th macro peak, we really see markets tank after that, and hopefully we see really some really strong macro swings in the markets. I think that'd be a lot of fun to really lock in those swing points. So basically, I try to play bigger, obviously at the macro swing points, and then maybe try to do some options in the near term, so as to gain the most leverage at the macro swing points, and hopefully not get hurt too much in the short term game. So anyways, that's how I play it. Yeah. So anyways, I think I've talked long enough tonight, and I'm sure when you tune in next time, the models will be saying the exact same thing. The story will hopefully be exactly the same, and we'll be 1 week closer to the February 6th macro peak, plus or minus one business day. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, I'm BR Schultz.